Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to my favorite time of the week where we take a look at what has happened over the last development week, what is worthy of your developer minds. And this week we have news from Solidity, from Etherlime, from Truffle, Forgae. There are a couple of tutorials in terms of how are you going to build your assets marketplace, or how you can do upgrade driven development. So I'm your host George, and without any further ado, let's get moving and let's look first at what has happened in terms of Solidity. So Solidity has actually now have very interesting, not very positive streak. Second week in a row, they're actually releasing a new version that is a bug fixing version of the previous one. Some of you might remember that last week they released 0.5.6 that had bug fixes in terms of the ABI encoder and the optimizer. Well, guess what? This week it is the same. There has actually been some bugs uncovered in the ABI encoder version 2. Although this is experimental, they had released a statement over this because many contracts actually have been live on the mainnet with this experimental feature turned on. So what it comes down to is pretty much usage of ABI.encode function in Solidity. So if you have used ABI.encode in Solidity with input parameters being arrays, you might be exposed to this bug. There are, of course, some more conditions that you can read in the resources that are pointed in the description of this video. So make sure that you check out your code, and if you are vulnerable to this bug, please do go ahead and migrate as soon as possible. And yeah, pretty much do hasty steps in order to move away. There are some other minor bug fixings that are in terms of the optimizer. So part of these bugs were fixed in the previous version, and now probably the optimizer bugs have been eradicated finally. So this has been Solidity 0.5.7. Check your code if you're using ABI encoder version 2. On another news, Etherlime has released version 1.0.6, and this version contains a minor update of the Etherlime Ganache with updated versions and with parameters for setting out the default gas limits when you're using Etherlime Ganache. This is pretty much a setup release for the upcoming release with major functionalities that are going to be included in Etherlime. And while we're talking about deployment and development tools, there is actually, of course, a new version of Truffle. So Truffle had this mean streak of weekly releases. So there is one more this week, 5.0.10. With major improvements of the debugger. So what is in there? Well, there is now support in the debugger for globally available variables, ability to specify external list of breakpoints that you want for your debugger to stop to, and of course there are some more fixes in terms of how do you handle failed calls. In addition, there are improvements in Truffle on the compiler, where in the compilation process you're now going to get much better messages when there is a SOC version mismatch between your contracts and the SOC version. Moving on from Truffle and actually diving into the Eternity network, there is a new version of the deployment and development tool Forgae. There is version 1.3.2, and in 1.3.2, actually you can see a new command, Forge Shape, which pretty much allows you to scaffold a new client-side project. And of course, there are some updates on Forge init command. Back to the Forge shape command, the first shape that you can do and actually create a client-side application for Eternity is with the front-end framework, web framework Vue.js. So now with Forge, you can start your own Eternity Vue.js powered project. And moving away from deployment and development frameworks, Infura actually has great of their web socket APIs. There isn't new functionality here. However, there are many stabilizations. WebSockets API has been somewhat shaky up until this moment. So the Infura team has released this upgrade. And notable things there is a fix for the 1 hour idle timeout that was happening. There are new subscription endpoints, and there are stabilization in terms of responses regardless of when do you query about certain function or where are you from. So great job to Infura for stabilizing their APIs. And pretty much this was what we had in mind in terms of tools and libraries. However, there is a lot of knowledge that has been shared over this previous week, and I would like to highlight several interesting pieces that you might find interesting. First one is actually about how do you go about building your own marketplace. And there is a tutorial by a person called Marunas Grinkalitis, and he has actually written this tutorial about creating a decentralized marketplace about digital art. And the key takeaway of this tutorial is that actually he has used 0x assert framework in order to build this marketplace. 0x assert framework seems like a very interesting framework. It is a collection of front-end JavaScript libraries and smart contracts that pretty much allows you to build asset marketplaces, decentralized marketplaces, and in this case, the asset is pretty much digital art. All of this is powered by ERC721 NFTs. So this is a very good tutorial. I think that I especially like that it is not a biased tutorial. It has been given in this tutorial. There have been given the two viewpoints. There are pros into using 0x and there are pros into the framework itself. There's of course some improvement points that are there, so it is not too biased. And pretty much in 12 minutes you're going to be able to learn how to build your own decentralized exchange of assets through 0x. Another piece of knowledge that is very cool is actually there has been a video and a GitHub repository that has surfaced that pretty much shows you how you can get much more efficiently. You can get mass, like in the batches, get the balances of it or ERC20 tokens for some token. All of this comes from a person, an expert Solidity developer called Roman Storm. And Roman Storm has actually been tasked previously with scraping the Ethereum network and figuring out who has X amount of Ether and X amount of balances of certain tokens. And he has managed through the use of Solidity to optimize the performance of his script. And he has shared with us how each and every one of us can do so. So look into the description for the resource and you're going to have like 20 minutes video tutorial of how you can do this. And of course there is a GitHub link for those of you that don't want to watch through the tutorials but just see the code. And last but not least, there is now this term called upgrade-driven development, and there has been upgrade-driven development workshop by Zeppelin. Uh, in my opinion, pretty much one of the most underrated and not enough known areas of the blockchain development is upgradability. Yes, it is a controversial subject, but I think that every developer should have this in their arsenal. So, Denison Bertram of Zeppelin Solutions have actually given an hour-long workshop that has been recorded on video on how you can actually do upgradability and how you can have an upgrades-driven development. All of this is based on Zeppelin OS and ZepKit. So if you're not familiar with upgradability or you're not familiar with Zeppelin OS or ZepKit, this is an amazing place to start. You can pretty much get to know what's upgradability and how you can use Zeppelin in order to achieve it through a single video. and I encourage you to do so. So pretty much with this news from Zeppelin, this is everything that I wanted to share with you. And like always, keep building. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Click on the notification bell so that you know when we release the next video. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at gspasov. And of course, see you next week, guys. Bye.